Hi everyone, this is Jen, and I am super excited to be sharing with you a project that I created, and it is the same as this mini album that I did a share on, and I'm going to do a tutorial for you. Now, before we start, I want to let you know that I am going to use my Cameo to cut everything out in regards to the base of the album. I created all the cut files needed to do the base of the album because that is my least favorite part of doing it. So, like I said before, I'm trying to use up my stash. So, I'm going to do this really old matte stack, and it's the Immortal Love matte stack from DCWV. And I chose this one because it was similar in thickness to the DCWV stack that I made this album from. So, if you used a thinner paper stack, which I have several of, you may even like that better because it won't be so big. Now this one, I still feel confident in this one that even after you add some pictures to it, it won't be too big because you do have some room there. And then the other thing is that you can make it as simple or as elaborate as you want, and that just depends on you. I am going to do very simple because I want to show you the cut files that I'm using. They don't have fancy edges or anything like that, so basically you're just going to get rectangles with perforated lines for the bends. And I did this because, like I said before, I can't seem to get straight cuts, so this was my solution to that. So this is a really fast album to make in regards to mini albums in general. And it also doesn't use a lot of product. I mean, I'm going to use up my stash, but it doesn't use a lot of cardstock, it doesn't use a lot of chipboard. So I have here 2 4x4 1/4 pieces of chipboard, and they were actually scraps from a different project. Looks like one's a little bigger than the other. May have to trim that down. And then this is another scrap. I'm going to cut this down to 2x4. I'm going to show you how I cut my chipboard. This is medium weight chipboard. It's about 1/8 of an inch thick, and that is kind of important because when you do your front cover, you need to leave double space of the thickness of your chipboard between your layers, and I'll show you that. But that determines on whether or not the cover is going to fit exactly right. And if not, then it's okay because you can just split the difference, and then when you fold your cover over, you can just either fold it over or cut excess off or whatever you want to do. So I have my chipboard. I have a piece of Tyvek for the cover so that it doesn't rip, but you can use duct tape, you can use, there's a million things you can use, Craft Tex. I just happen to have, I bought a whole bunch of Tyvek, so we're going to use that. I have a strong tape adhesive. I'm using score tape, and you won't use a lot of this, but I do like this to glue my pages, glue the extra, I don't know, hinged pages on. I like to use it for my hinge, and some for my cover. And then I use my ATG gun or any kind of adhesive runner to mat my photos or to mat my pages, and then a wet glue for incidentals, and we'll just deal with that when we get there. And then for this whole album, all you need is 9 pieces of 8.5 by 11 cardstock and 1 piece of 12 by 12 cardstock, and I'm using the Black Cat from Joann's. I think it's Coordinations or Dory's. I think it's Dory's. And it's a 65-pound cardstock. If you use a heavier cardstock, your book is going to be bulkier. And of course my Cameo and my computer. So I want to show you the cut files I'm starting with. I'm going to try and do this in real time. So first, while I'm going to cut my chipboard, that hinge piece, while I do that, I'm going to cut this image here, and this is the front cover and the hinge, and then I have a photo mat on here. I'm trying to eliminate scrap because I'm trying to use scraps, and this is the only scrap basically you're going to have is this 3 by 8 section here, very small section over here. You're going to cut this one time. I'm going to go to the second page. I use these for photo mats. This is the second part of your cover because the span is too long to just use one. And then this is the pages. These are the cut files for the pages and the tags. And another, it's a little mini file folder. And it has the belly band, it has the fold over, and it has the page itself. So, and then you'll have that little unusable or that little scrap there. So I really tried to eliminate scrap. Okay, so let's get started. I hope I don't miss anything. 1/8 inch chipboard. Okay, I think that's it. So I am going to turn on my Cameo, and you're going to hear it cutting in the background. And I'm going to put my extra paper to the side. I'm going to put these screenshots to the side. Again, that's the first one I'm going to cut. And we'll do this in real time. The 65-pound cardstock, the only thing I don't like about it is when you just change your mat, or when you get a new mat out, the 65-pound cardstock tends to bend a little and sometimes tear. But once you get that sweet spot for your mat, it is so much easier. So this mat I used for a couple different projects. I actually used it for the Halloween mini that I just showed you. Okay, so it is not super sticky. Alright, so load this in. And for my cut settings, I use the 65-pound cardstock. So right now it's on the 80. I'm going to find my 65-pound pattern paper, medium weight, 65-pound. And that cuts it good. Alright, so that's going to start cutting. And now, as I said before, I have my chipboard. And the Cameo is going to beat me, so you don't have to listen to it the whole time. It will cut way faster than I do. So I got 2 pieces that are already cut at 4 by 4 1/4, and again, those were scraps from a different project. And then I'm going to cut this one down to 4 by 2. And in order to cut my chipboard, this is what I do. I take and line it up on my 2-inch mark here, and this is a Fisker's. It has the I don't know, slide blade. My paper cutter, the one I use for paper, I use the rotary blade. So I line it up on the 2-inch, and I make a score because it's so thick it's not going to go all the way through. Turn it over, line it up on the 2-inch again, score on that side, and then it breaks right off. And this I'm not going to use. Throw that one away. Okay, and I'm going to do the same on the 4-inch. So you line it up with the 4-inch line, score it on that side, you flip it over, line it up on the 4-inch line, just falls right off. So now I got my 4x2. That scrap. Okay, and this is the only thing I use this paper cutter for. And if you have one of these, and you use it to cut your paper too, take one of your old blades that isn't good for paper anymore and use it for your chipboard. Because after you use it for your chipboard, it's not good for anything else. Okay, so now I have my front cover, back cover, and spine piece. And I'm just going to check the dimensions on this. This piece is lining up a bit bigger, and I don't know that I can take something that small off, but I am going to try. It's not even worth measuring, it's just a sliver. So, I think like a 1/16 will do it. If I do a 1/16 off of this side, then that one. So let's see if that works. Okay. Took that little bitty tiny piece off. As long as you get it lined up, it's all good. Okay, so let's see, check my measurements. I'm looking pretty good there. Okay, I'm happy with that. So 4x4 1/4, 4x4 1/4, 2x4, 4x2, whatever you want to say. Okay, and my Cameo just got done cutting. Okay, I'll unload my mat. I'm gonna let you guys see this. This is all the scrap you have right here. And I'm gonna keep that. I'm just gonna chop off these unwanted ends. And that's gonna go, I may need that later to mat a sticker or something on. This is going to be a photo mat, so I'm just gonna set this off to the side. And then this is my hinge. And you can see the bend lines are all perforated for you. And I'm sure it weakens it a little bit, but I've made several albums like this and I have not had a problem. Okay. So this is going to be your front cover, and I chose to do just the base, a black base, and instead of the pattern paper, and then I'll layer the pattern paper over that. Now I'm going to get my second piece of paper on here, and I do need this cut because the second part of the covers on this sheet. So I'm going to go to my page 2, and I named this file Cover B 4x4, and these are studio cut files. These aren't JPEGs or PNGs or DWGs, because I don't have that software. I only have the Silhouette software. So I just used the designer edition, which you don't need in order to cut it, and made my own cut files. Okay, now I want to point out on here I have a perforated line, and that perforated line is in order to line up where you need the covers, the cover A and the cover B, because as you can see, once you lay this out and give yourself enough room around the cover, you still need quite a large piece of paper there. So that's cutting now, and while that's cutting, it's only going to take a second, I'm going to start folding my hinge. So you fold up and then down, and you do like an accordion fold so that these are going to be the hinges that stick in the page. And then these are the gussets between. So this eliminates a lot of scoring, a lot of measuring. So there's your the hinge itself, and there's your gusset between. Okay, so I'm going to finish that later. I'll show you how to do that. Right now my cut file's done. So there's nothing that I deem usable on this piece of paper, so that gets tossed. And again, these are my photo mats, or some of my photo mats, and you don't have to use these in your album. You just don't think you're going to need it. Make sure I'm on screen. My mat's still pretty sticky, but it's not horrible. Okay, so these 7 pieces here are photo mats. And the reason why there was a photo mat on the first page is because you have 8 pages, and I wanted each page to have the same amount of stuff on it. Okay, so I'm taking the photo mats off, and again I'm going to stick these to the aside. And they do have a little bit of a curl on them, so I'm going to stick them under my mat and forget about them probably until later. And then this is the second half of the cover that I need. Okay, so one of my suggestions is, if you have to change your silhouette mat, and I changed this not too long ago, is I took my shirt and I pounced all over the silhouette mat. It was still too sticky. It was way too sticky to cut 65 pound cardstock, so I ended up cutting some 80-pound cardstock, and I've lost my, what did I do with it, you guys? I've lost my cut. Oh, it was stuck to the bottom of my mat. Okay, here we go. I found it. Okay, so this is the B side, I guess, of the cover. Straighten out here. Make sure my phone's still videoing. Yes, okay. So now these perforated lines, it's going to tell you where you need to line this piece up in order to have the correct dimensions. So double check myself, and it's where do you want your seam at, because you're going to have a seam. You can definitely cover it up. I covered this one up. This was the seam. I actually left it on the front and I covered it up with a piece of ribbon, but literally you can only see about a 1/16 of an inch of it. So that's what we're accomplishing here. So we're going to look, and this is going to be about a 1/2 inch. You're going to have about a 1/2 inch over here, about a 1/2 inch over here, and then on both sides. So just eyeballing it, if you line this piece of paper up with this perforation, your seam on the outside of the cover is going to be right about there. So it's not quite half, but it's going to be right here, which I think is an inconspicuous place. That's why I picked that. So I'm pretty happy with that. I am going to use score tape. And I like using score tape on this 65-pound cardstock instead of glue, because the glue tends to buckle it. It makes it wavy. Okay. I got that little bit piece there. I'm going to take a tiny piece. This is about 1 inch over. And I can't do that thing where they put the tape down and then rip it. I don't know why, I'm just not that coordinated. Okay, so I will pick that up. Okay, so along this edge, the perforation's right here. Let me color this perforation in. You're not going to see it anyways. So the perforation is right here. And then I'm going to do it, and there's no perforation on this side, so it doesn't matter what side you use. I'm going to use, so if you used a heavier cardstock, you could use liquid glue on this, because it wouldn't buckle. Like, I know if I used heavier cardstock on the pages, I could glue the photo mats down and all that good stuff, but we'll just use this. Okay, so what I've done is I ensured that it'll have sticky on both sides and then on the top and the bottom. Now I'm going to take this off. This is probably, I'm just going to fold this over. I put too much tape on there. This is probably the hardest part, is lining this stuff up. Roll that over. And I'm just going to warn you guys, there's no way I'm going to get this done in one sitting. At least one uninterrupted sitting. So we may have a couple of... Wait, I'm using my, couple interruptions, sorry. I'm using my lines here on my mat to line this up a little bit. And once I stick this down, there's no going back. Well, there is, but let's try not to do that because this is 65-pound cardstock. So you should have a pretty even... should be even from here to here and along the bottom. So I'm a little off over here. I'm pretty happy with it though. Okay, so this is going to be the part that shows, and this is going to be the part that we glue our stuff to. Okay, so now we're going to place our parts in here. And I am all about making this as inexpensive as possible because I'm using my scraps. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on glue and cardstock that I would use for anything else. So, I'm going to try and make this with as least adhesive as possible without jeopardizing the structural. Is it structural when you're talking about cards? Okay, so in order to assist me, I am going to draw a line across my cardstock. You can use any color cardstock that you have in your stash. I do recommend that you use the same color 12 by 12 and 8 by 8. One reason is because your two cover pieces come from that, and your hinge, and one of your photo mats that I showed you before. So if you use different colors, I mean, you could, you just have to move the files around that I created for you. Okay, so now the rule is double space between your spine and your chipboard covers, double space of the thickness of the cardstock, like I said before. And that allows it to open and close without tearing. So I do have a piece of Tyvek here, and like I said before, you can so use duct tape for that. And I am going to actually use, I don't know what side it's supposed to go on. I don't know if that makes a difference. I am going to use score tape along the outside of the four corners, or four edges here. This video may be in several different parts too, so I hope I don't want to make one big long video. I don't think I do. I don't know. I'm still learning the whole video editing thing. Okay. Whoops. Okay, so that's the Tyvek. This is going to hold it pretty much in place. And I just want it for the spine to reach between the spine and then the two covers. So I am going to put this right about there. That'll work. And again, sorry about that, this will all be covered. So I am going to put extra adhesive in the middle so it sticks. Not because it won't stay stuck down, but because you don't want that middle popping up. And I'm going to do the same with the covers. So take all this off. Here. I'm going to line it up approximately with that little line I made. There's no need for perfection when you're lining this up. Okay, now I'll bring these back in, and I am going to say I want just about the same distance on each side of this hinge. So I'm feeling that is approximately correct. And the first thing I'm going to do is glue down my hinge. Again, score tape. If you guys can see down here. Let me move you a little bit.